Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about SteamWorld Dig 2. Now, I've been wanting to get my hands on this title for quite some time. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a code up until now, so this is when I'm going to be talking about it, because obviously I can't talk about a game before playing it, am I right? So I know that some of you guys might want my traditional live video where I talk about my first impressions while I'm playing the video game. There's going to be a link to that at the end of this video so that you guys can check out those first impressions if that is something that you want to check out. But I also wanted to make a shorter, more concise video telling guys how I feel about the game. So the very first thing that instantly struck me as I was playing through it was the visuals of the game, which are pretty much in line with the first one, which I've played for only a couple of minutes, if I'm being completely honest. I did not play the original SteamWorld Dig all that much. However, I must say I did play quite a bit of SteamWorld Heist, and I enjoyed that game quite a bit. I played that on the 3DS. It was a completely different game from the original. SteamWorld Heist was actually like a tactical, almost 2D XCOM-like game, but it was a lot of fun because you would shoot hats off robots. There was all of these really cool mechanics that you could do, and the way bullets ricocheted off and the animation work and the details, I personally thought were pretty damn good. As a matter of fact, that's where we first kind of begin here. The visuals, the animation, and the art style, which are essentially something that kind of sticks out throughout all of their titles in a very uniform way. I'm not saying it looks exactly like the first one. Obviously, there's a lot of improvements in terms of visuals, and even the animation itself, it feels more fluid, it feels better. But the art style here is quite unique. They've come up with this art style, they've built this world and universe around these games, which are the SteamWorld games. And a lot of people actually thought that SteamWorld Dig was going to be a different game, because like you had SteamWorld, the very first SteamWorld Dig, right, where you just kind of like dig downwards in a procedurally generated world, and you collect resources, you come back up the town, you sell those resources, upgrade your stuff, and then you keep digging further deep. And then the second game they made, SteamWorld Heist, was very, very different. So a lot of people actually thought that they were going to have all of these different genres into this unified universe, which they still can. But SteamWorld Dig 2 feels very much like the original SteamWorld in the way that the gameplay kind of works. So you got your character, who is Dorothy this time around, and she's looking for Rusty, which I'm led to believe is the name of the first character. And basically your quest just kind of begins like that. Here's Dorothy, she's looking for Rusty, and you go into a town, you try to get into a mine because people tell you, oh, we went into the mine and we never saw him again. So you go into that town, you go into the mine, you start doing that loop of SteamWorld Dig, which is essentially you dig, you get resources like ore and gems and other valuable things. You come back up, you sell those things, and then you can upgrade your gear, and that allows you to keep digging deeper. Now, as you dig, you're going to also be unlocking different shortcuts and stuff like that to allow you to get back to town a little bit easier. There's going to be different themes to each of the locations you go through. At this point, I think I've played like 2 to 3 hours or something like that. I've only really seen 2 themes. There's like this rocky-like theme, and then there's a more, I don't want to say swampy, it's got like bioluminescence and stuff on it. So those are the 2 themes that I've experienced so far. But I do have to say, there's somewhat of a primal satisfaction to this gameplay loop. Or maybe it's just because I have natural hoarding tendencies. Anyone who's seen me play video games knows that I tend to hoard everything I possibly can and just like keep everything. So I guess that there is a kind of primal a primal thing in me that just awakens when a game is all about, oh, let's collect the loot that's in here, without actually featuring loot boxes. I had to throw that jab in there. Anyway, as I was saying, there is something about this loop that I find particularly satisfying. You go into a cave, you start digging around, you collect minerals, you also fight a couple of enemies along the way. I fought what I would consider like a mini boss at the very start of the game, but I haven't seen any other fight like that, so I don't know if they're going to be something that I will encounter more frequently in terms of boss fights or not. This is very much a first impression video. Keep that in mind. But again, I enjoy the loop. The loop is just really cool, in my opinion. Just going down, getting treasure, coming back up, selling treasure, upgrading your gear, being able to stay down there longer. And it's just pretty cool. Another thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the sound, which I also feel is important to bring up, because the sound of the game is pretty good. You know, it's nothing that I would say, oh my god, it's friggin' fantastic. No, it's pretty good, the sound. But what is really good is the soundtrack. The soundtrack does a great job, and it's very dynamic depending on what is happening, where your character is, all the things that are taking place in the game. The soundtrack kind of flows very nicely with the action, and it is something that personally I've started to notice more and more in video games, and the soundtrack of this one, in my opinion, is really, really good. There's also a very specific mechanic in this game that reminds me of an old game from my childhood. I used to play this game on an Amstrad computer. Pretty sure a lot of guys don't even know what the hell an Amstrad PC is, but I used to play this game on an Amstrad that was called Dig Dug. And I know that there's other versions, like console versions and stuff, but I seem to remember that the version that I played on PC was extremely different from the version that was on consoles. Basically, it had this mechanic where you're this vehicle and you're able to go through dirt, and you're digging your way through dirt, and you're trying to get treasures and stuff. But there was this mechanic where there were these bags of gold, and if you were to dig below the bags of gold and you would like create a tunnel, the bags of gold will fall down and they would like crush stuff. They would crush your enemies, or they would crush you if you happen to be along the way. And this game also has something like that, which is sometimes you can dig beneath boulders and boulders will start crashing down. As a matter of fact, a lot of deaths that I've had is because I was able to crush myself with a giant boulder. So there is a video of that. Like I said, at the end of this, there will be a link to a video where you guys can watch me die repeatedly if that is your thing. The enemies that I've fought so far have been fairly basic, but still, that satisfaction of digging and, you know, coming back up, it still feels like pretty cool in my opinion. So this right here is another solid Switch title. If it seems like you enjoy the gameplay that is going on screen right now, or you can check out more gameplay with the link at the end of this video, I can wholeheartedly advise that the game is pretty fun. I've enjoyed it thoroughly with what I've played of it so far. And another interesting thing, this is actually a really good game to play almost in the background and relax. So it's like you can be fully focused on it and engaged if you want to. But it's also the kind of game that you can play while listening to a podcast or something like that. There's no real voice acting. The characters just kind of go like meh, 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 whenever they're talking, so it's not really a big deal and have to pay attention to that. And it just feels like a good game for that. If you know, sometimes you got games that are just good podcast games, like a lot of people say, oh, Destiny's a good podcast game. This, on top of being a good game, is also a pretty good game that you can kind of like play and sometimes not have to pay as much attention. Now, depending on the scenario that you're facing, you might have to devote more attention to it. But if you're just like digging, chilling, getting some resources, going back, you actually can chill for a bit. Another interesting thing is that in the whole time that I've played, enemies have not respawned, resources have not respawned. I'm not sure if that's going to be a mechanic that's going to come into play later, but if it doesn't, that means that your resources are limited as you are playing through the game, which kind of makes it more interesting, because when you die, you lose some of those resources. So death will have some impact, and it is, you know, there's that thing where resources aren't just going to respawn, unless, of course, they do so at a later date. I don't know what the deal is with that, but either way, I'm having a lot of fun with it, and if you guys enjoy the gameplay that you're watching, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. Another solid Switch title. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, helps out a lot. If you are new here, subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you're always notified when there's a new video on the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.